Hello everyone, welcome to Ukraine War Hotspots. Looks like the Russians lost 790 troops yesterday. Let's say goodbye to those boys. One helicopter, one tank, 10 APV, 5 artillery systems, pretty reasonable, but more significantly 5 MLRS. That's quite good. 10 UAV, presumably or undoubtedly the Iranian drones that were launched at Ukraine just before the missile strikes, and 15 assorted vehicles. Bad day for the Russians. Praise be. Here's the civilian losses. Another 56 washing machines, 12 refrigerators, etc. Not sure if there's any accuracy to any of these, but it's kind of funny. Not the reality of it, that's not very funny. The deep state map doesn't show any significant changes for the several past weeks. Little changes. You go back far enough, you can see the Ukrainians encroaching within the past months on the Kreminna area, but nothing significant. And I think it's specifically because of blackout. Because here, for example, you can see DEFMON 3 is reporting or illustrating in this map that, and stating, I'm sorry, I should have clarified, the AFU are now possibly close enough to Svatove to be able to smell the eventual orc barbecue parties. And yeah, within 10 kilometers, according to this. That's quite significant. Then here we have at Tendar on Twitter. Ukrainians have most likely made some decent progress at the front line near Svatove. The village of Pitkuchansk has been liberated, as well as at least the northern part of Kolymychika. I mark it as contested for now. To be sure, we will see next days. Its source is ISW. And he's well marked those towns that seem to have been captured by Ukraine, putting them within that 10 kilometers. Again, here's another post from DEFMON. AFU repulsed attacks in the area of Kuzymivka to Novoselivska and Kolymychenka to Stelmakivka. No major change in this area since yesterday. I've done a large update of our unit locations in this area. And so just one thing after another seems to be pointing to the Ukrainians making some ground here. But as you'll see in this video, it's going to be a tough go. The Russians are reinforcing Svatove and Kreminna areas. But don't forget, the fight for Lyman was quite difficult too. They did sort of the same thing. They held out in Lyman and held out until they got surrounded and couldn't get supplies in, and then finally retreated into somewhat of an ambush, lost a significant amount of troops getting out of there. Could be the same deal here. There's a little bit more difficulty here with the weather, but let's have a listen anyway.
Друзі, вітаю всіх. Одна з історій – це історія про те, що зараз відбувається напрямок Сvatove Kreminna. Там доволі важкі бої, друзі, і якщо говорити в цілому, то створюється стратегічна перевага наших сил. Але ворог туди закинув чимало підкріплення і намагається не дати Збройним силам України деокупувати Svatove та Кремінну. Вони роблять максимум, на що здатні, але стратегічна перевага там така, що ворог не зможе довго за нинішніх моментів, які там створені, утримувати ці міста. Задача деокупувати, звісно, вона є. І про оптимізм каже командування Збройних сил України в тому числі. Але дуже важкі там бої, друзі, великий опір ворога. Тримаємо кулаки, слава Україні, переможемо всіх.
So we'll win, he says, but it's going to be tough. And yeah, I think so. This is a T-90 captured, or I should say destroyed. Captured Russian T-90 in the forest south of Kreminna. Rumors of Ukrainians entering the suburbs seem to be well founded. Well, that's an interesting statement. Kreminna is a Russian stronghold in Luhansk that grants control of vital P-66. Losing it results in the collapse of the entire front from Svatove to Lysychansk. And I think it's worse than that, but let's just watch this for the quick few seconds. That tank's not going to be shooting at any women and children in the near future, thankfully. And so, to the point, yeah, when Kreminna falls, I think Svatove is going to be tougher because it appears to be quite more difficult to surround, especially in the current weather conditions. But Kreminna, this forest area, um, not quite as muddy in the forest as it is out in these open areas. And that's where they seem to be gaining most of their um, advancements. Let's just, but in any case, once Kreminna falls, there's a whole lot of other issues for the Russian army. Of course, you have no support coming from through any significant roadways into these areas. Um, you have Rubizna or Rubizny, whichever, to protect, and all these towns in here, which I believe will fall rather quickly. But that means that this whole offensive down here in Bakhmut, Soledar, and Yakovlivka, they're all going to have to end, and they're going to have to bring those troops up to support here because they're going to have whatever pulled out of Kreminna, whatever pulled out of Svatove is going to be heading this way to Starobilsk. But um, I don't think there's much of anything. There's probably some staging area for equipment, but not a lot of troops hanging out in here because they're all positioned in these areas. So, the troops that were just defending the smaller area of Kreminna now have to fall back and defend the larger area of Lysychansk and Severodonetsk. And it's not going to be good enough. They're going to have to pull troops from down here. And so, quite significant once this goes. If this does fall, and it seems that it will, um, reasonably soon, it's sort of a testament to the lack of forethought and pre-planning on the part of the Russians. This this should be a heavily fortified area. This should be, and is to some degree, but this should be impenetrable. This should be supported to the point where it's impenetrable. And it doesn't appear that that's the case. We'll see, of course, but I think the fall of Kreminna is coming sooner than even most optimistic people think. Um, so jumping ahead here, one thing I noticed, seeing videos like this, is the Ukrainians seem to be so well trained and understanding what their comrades are going to do and what their tank division is going to do and what's expected of them and which is the right way to move. And the grouping might seem a little tight in this case, but they're probably in an area where they feel pretty comfortable and they're positioned behind the tank, which is helpful too. But I think you see a lot better and more professional looking behavior out of the Ukrainian troops than the Russian ones. The caption for that is Ukraine Army prepares and attacks on Russian position with tank support. And of course that's what they're doing. Again, we have another little map showing the sort of the cauldron that Kreminna is becoming. But the caption for that is, let's see, map of UA activities, you can see they are closing the city in a pincer movement, principle of the Battle of Cannes, imagined by Hamilcar Barca in antiquity. Um, anyway, just another sort of illustration of Kreminna becoming surrounded. Then you've got these captured Russian troops, again in the area of Kreminna. Um, Not local, lagging behind their own. In other words, I think that means they're not Ukrainians. They're Russian troops that fell behind and were captured somewhere in the forest near Kreminna. Ours took the loss. I think they're saying racist. This word in Ukrainian translates into calculated. So I think this is derogatory for racist or fascist. P.S. If someone's surprised why they have automatic machines or machine guns, he's trying to say it happens so often, the years have been drawn out, but let them carry automatic weapons themselves. Excuse me. In other words, they're not loaded or not functioning, one or the other, so let them carry the weight. And here's another uh, example of that video, and the caption, the Ukraine head of Luhansk Civil Military Administration publishes images of a small group of captured Russian soldiers in the Kremin forest near the city of Kreminna. Again, more evidence that they're taking prisoners and making progress in that forest. Um, this is just a illustration of what they're up against, and I think that this is the biggest enemy of them moving forward. But that's why holding that position in the forest right now is so strategically significant, because they're going to have trouble getting at them from the north. From the road leading into Kreminna, they can attack them, and from the forest. Up in Svatove, looks like they're going in head on, and that's probably because of conditions like this. And this is, um, caption for that is, burned tanks and armored vehicles in the field and plantings. The dead Russian military who were never taken away by their hastily retreating colleagues. Such a picture on the way to Svatove Kreminna. And yeah, there's plenty of videos of dead Russian soldiers in trenches just left there. And I also saw a video of a group of Russians entering a shed, and one of them kind of lagged behind off to the side, and an artillery shell hit in front of the shed and took out a couple of those. And the one off to the side seemed mostly uninjured, if at all injured, and walked around and had a look at the soldier in front of the opening to the shed who was moving and up on his knees, had a look at him and immediately left. Didn't try to drag him off by one arm, or maybe felt that another shell was coming in, but didn't make any effort to help any one of those guys. That's kind of what, at least that's the videos that are presented to us over and over again. It's probably, quite a stark reality. And so here's the weather. Um, Most significant factor. I mean, I think what happened is the reason we see this advance near Kreminna is it froze and it became quite cold. Um, sub well sub-zero, and well freezing. And I think some of the Russian soldiers really suffered from that cold with poor equipment and such, and the ground got hard and allowed the Ukrainian army to advance and gain some ground in open areas and in the forest. But then the warm weather came and it started raining and softening up the ground again. And here's in Fahrenheit what that forecast looks like. Tomorrow through forever, it's well above freezing. It's going to be very tough. But I think they've gained the positions they need to take Kreminna. That's why I say I think Kreminna will fall before Svatove. but Kreminna falling will bring about the falling of Svatove, and only because they've gained those positions that they have right now, and they can keep attacking from there. And then this was, let's see the caption. Various sources state that Ukrainian armed forces are attacking the city of Kreminna directly and gaining significant territory. And yeah, I mean, that's either true or it isn't, but based on everything that we've seen, it appears to be likely. Armed forces of Ukraine urge people to wait for official report of General Staff of Liberation of the city of Kreminna. And that's kind of the sort of statements that came before the liberation of Liman and Izium and Kherson. They're kind of like saying, hold off, we're still working on it. Then I wanted to mention this. This is the first map I've seen where someone sort of got this idea in mind. UAF makes Russia believe its efforts are concentrated on Dnipro and Svatove Bakhmut lines, then move straight to Berdyansk area no one is paying attention to, pushing RAF to Melitopol and Mariupol, cutting their main supply line to the west, similar to Kherson and Izium. Yeah, I would say, all along, as people are talking about, analysts talking about marching straight down to Melitopol, that just doesn't seem possible or smart to me. I've always felt, like this guy has now pointed out, that they'll come straight down to Berdyansk. They'll they'll bypass Tokmak and Melitopol. Maybe hit Tokmak on the way, but that's pretty well fortified. I think they're just coming whatever way they need to get straight down to Berdyansk. They'll build up defense lines along the way and start spreading out like this illustration here. Get to Berdyansk and start beating on that Kerch Bridge to totally cut off this entire Russian force. It's got to be many tens of thousands of troops. That's the move of the century right there. That's the move that would be spoken of in history books. If there's 30, 40, 50,000 troops in here, that's going to be a big turning point in the war and a pretty significant battle, historical battle. Look what that leaves. It leaves quite a small area to finish off here compared to what they faced back in March. Anyway, I thought this was kind of funny. And
I'll now show you what it means to live in the Russian shithole. It's also
this is a fellow who's translating this Russian girl's narrative of her apartment conditions.
I'll now show you what it means to live in the Russian shithole. It's also known as province.
Kind of
Take
funny.
a look. Here's a parking lot. Here, you see what kind of dump we have in the parking lot? There, it's even more interesting. All this garbage. Next to these apartment buildings, a dump where you can find huge rats the size of a dinosaur. This miserable house, this fucking old house, is my home. At the entrance, we're met by this shed that's already been here for like a week or so. Look at this view. We have some culture over here. My clean white shoes. Some cables are sticking out. Here's even cooler. Like that. I live on the 5th floor. But for some reason, I don't fucking lose weight. And here's an art installation. And here, somebody has hung a stinky old rug, and it has already been stinking here for a long time. This is my apartment, and here's the rug. You might say, get the hell out of this hole. But no, my friends, I'm a patriot. I'm a patriot of our country. I'm a patriot of our Russia. Because if I say something else, I'll be fucking put in jail.
Kind of funny.
Slava.
Out of fairness, have to say, can find plenty of worse places in the United States, and presumably worse, or for that matter, much of the rest of the world too. I'm sure. I thought that this was worth looking at an infographic of losses and gains by the Russian-Ukrainian militaries during the war, designed by Volodymyr Tkachenko and shared by Stratcom Directorate of AFU. Dynamics of the balance of power. This guy kind of sums it up good in his reply. Comparison over time. Important to note how Ukraine seems to be closing the gap thanks to Russian donations. And yeah, so the Russians started out with 195 to 230,000 troops, 190 perhaps that says, and drops down to 100,000 to 150,000, and mobilization, and up to 250 to 400,000. And for Ukraine, just kind of a steady, as they're training troops and of course experiencing losses, not as significant, no doubt, or at least seemingly. If you believe this, they certainly haven't experienced these kind of losses. Kind of catching up to them, to where 250 to 350,000 troops. Same thing with equipment. Just, maybe 500 tanks, separate the two of them. Armored vehicles, still quite a significant difference there, but going in the right direction. And same thing for artillery systems, much more of a significant issue, but still outnumbered 3 to 1 according to this, whatever level of accuracy this has. So I guess that's it for the day. If you liked this video, and I hope you did, please hit the like button, and I'd love to get some subscribers. And the subscribers are certainly welcome. Thank you.